and welcome to the City's Planning Department, City Attorney's Office, and the City's Planning Consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates. If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward to the podium when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name and address for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission, not to anyone else in the room. If you have a cell phone or other device that might disrupt this meeting, please either switch it to silent mode or turn it off. At this time, I'd like the Planning Commission Secretary, Ms. Sarnicki, to do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if my
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, good.
And I'm going to shut off my cell phone.
Mr. Faison?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krent?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here.
Ms. Malala Holly?
Here.
Ms. Parakis?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Roush?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here. We have a quorum. Next item is number 2, suspension of the Planning Commission bylaws. Is it necessary that I read the entire resolution, or do we just carry it from last month with the addition that people from the audience are welcome to come up to the podium and speak?
I believe that those, so this is my legal opinion because I'm playing Julie now, I guess.
Sure.
She's going to be a few minutes late.
Okay.
That's just, that language was from the May 11th meeting.
Okay.
Where we did not have public participation. So if anything, we're more in compliance with Planning Commission bylaws, but we are still accepting comments via remote meeting, so by remote meeting platform. So you may want to read it in.
Okay. Easy enough. All right. Whereas Public Act 228 of 2020 MCL 15.263A 1B permits public meetings to be held by electronic means where a local, state, and emergency has been declared. Whereas the Troy City Council declared a local state of emergency through Resolution 2021-04-048 because it determined that an in-person meeting could detrimentally increase exposure of board members and the general public to COVID-19. Therefore, be it resolved that, as allowed by the Planning Commission Rules and Procedure, Article 4, Section 3 and 6 of the Troy Planning Commission, hereby temporarily suspends the requirement of holding a meeting at the Troy City Hall and allows for all Troy Planning Commission members to electronically participate in any Planning Commission meeting until the Troy City Council lifts the local state of emergency on or through December 31st, 2021, whichever is earlier. Members participating electronically will be considered present and in attendance at the meeting and may participate in the meeting as if physically present. However, members must avoid using email, texting, instant messaging, and other electronic forms of communication to make a decision or deliberate toward a decision. Resolved as allowed by Planning Commission bylaws, rules of procedure, Article 7, Section 5A through D, the Troy Planning Commission hereby temporarily suspends the requirement that a person who wishes to address the Planning Commission must do so in person and allows 4 methods of receiving public comment for electronic meetings. Public comments can be submitted to the Planning Commission meeting by sending an email to planning@troymi.gov. Timely received emails will be incorporated into the record by reference and will be distributed to the Planning Commission members for review and consideration. Emails will be considered timely if received prior to 12 p.m. noon on the day of the meeting. The Vice Chair or in the absence of the vice chair, another member designated by the chair is designated to compile the emails and advise members of the Planning Commission during the meeting the number of comments that favor an agenda item, oppose an agenda item, and/or are neutral toward the agenda item. Or 2 public comments. Public comments may be submitted by leaving a voicemail message. Please call 248-524-1305. Timely received voicemail messages will be played during the electronic meeting. Recorded voicemail messages will be considered timely if received prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Members of the public may attend the electronic meeting virtually by signing into an electronic meeting through the designated platform, that is Zoom. Are we still using Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. And may comment on an agenda item when recognized by the chair. And 4, members of the public may call into the electronic meeting using a designated call-in number associated with the electronic meeting and will be recognized by the chair before permitted to speak. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I need a motion to approve that suspension of the Planning Commission bylaws.
I'll move.
Okay? And that was Mr. Faison. And a second, please? Okay. Mr. Rahman. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala Holly?
Yes.
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is approval of the minutes from both the April 27th and May 11th, 2021 meetings. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from those meetings?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
you skipped over item number 3.
Oh, approval of the agenda. I am sorry. You're right.
And I just want to note that we got some correspondence from the applicant for item 7 from Mondrian for the proposed Willowbrook number 2 site condominium. He has to be removed from this agenda.
Okay.
So I would request that the Planning Commission consider amending the agenda to remove item 7.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda minus item number 7? Okay. Mr. Lambert, and a second from Ms.
I'll second.
Parakis. Now I'll have a roll call on the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala Holly?
Yes.
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is approval of the minutes from the April 27th and May 11th, 2021 meetings. Do we have someone that would like to move that approval? Mr. Tagle does, and Ms. Malala Holly is the second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala Holly?
Yes.
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone present, or do we have any communication for someone that speaks for something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none? Hearing none?
Mr. Kent?
Yeah?
We do have 4 attendees, so at this time, we would ask if they raise their hand if they are going to speak. Before we comment on something not on the agenda, then I will allow them to speak.
Okay. The first person, I can't see them, but if they would give their name and address to be recognized, I'll just let you figure out who's first, second, third, and fourth.
Yes. So if anyone would like to make public comment on something not on the agenda today, please raise your hand. I see none.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next item. This is a public hearing for a rezoning request, file number ZJPLN 2021-0001, proposed Lindsay Center rezoning, east of Crooks, south of Big Beaver, 2690 Crooks. The PIN number is 88-20-28-101-003, Section 28, from Office O to Big Beaver, BB zoning district. Go ahead.
Mr. Carlisle is in the building, but he's attending another planning commission meeting right now, so
Okay,
he hopes to be here by 7:30, so I'm pinch hitting.
great.
So I stood here for about an hour last night, so this is old hat to me. I'm almost used to the reflection. So I'm looking at you, Mr. Crandon, and I'm seeing myself. It's really weird. It gives me a headache, but we'll get
We
through
also
it.
have an echo chamber working between these plastic sheets.
Yeah,
That's
it's like wearing bifocals when you look at the screen, but enough of that.
Yep.
So you introduced the project. Dim the lights there a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to have to squint because my glasses are at home, but I'll get through it. I should have used a bigger font. So it's available for viewing at all the screens here. That's helpful. Thank you.
Jerry, there's one behind you.
So in terms of background, the address is 2690 Crooks Road, and the present zoning is O office. And as you indicated, Mr. Chairman, the petitioner is before us this evening to seek a recommendation to rezone to BB Big Beaver. That's a mouthful. And they do indicate on the application that their intent is to convert the existing four-story, I believe it's 80,000 square foot office building into a 64-unit apartment building. Now, this is offered to us as a courtesy, just to let us know what their intent is. It is non-binding. They're not obligated to do that. But we have a good reputation with this developer, and I think that's what he wants to do. But nonetheless, we're not here to consider the conversion to apartments. We're here to consider the rezoning application. The issue for this conversion is that in the underlying O office district, apartments are not permitted. It's very much a single-use type of a zoning district. It's obviously geared for office use, and it doesn't satisfy their needs. So we're all familiar with the site. It's not too far from here. Up on the screen is a comparison of existing land uses and existing zoning districts. You can see from the table on the left that the property to the north is office, to the south is a funeral home. Thank you. To the east is an office building, and across Crooks to the west is a church and office. Zoning districts to the south and to the east are office. There's a little bit to the northeast is UR Urban Residential. To the north is Big Beaver, and to the west across Crooks is office and residential. The future land use plan shows the Big Beaver land use classification in red. This is classified as Big Beaver land use classification. The arrow shows you where it's located, and it's designated Big Beaver Road. Here's some quotes that I pulled out of the master plan, and I'll just read them because they're pretty powerful. The first is, in order to remain competitive and continue to be a leader in economic development in Southeast Michigan, Troy must plan for this corridor to evolve in light of a changing economy. Now, this is written in 2008, and I think we'd all agree that in 2021, standing here now, we're facing a changing economy, especially as it relates to office buildings. We don't quite know what the office market's going to do, but I think we've all got a pretty good idea that it's going to be challenging at best. The second quote, the use of vertically integrated mixed-use commercial, office, and residential towers should be promoted. The use of prominent ground floor retail, restaurants, and cafes allows visual interest and activity for visitors and residents. And finally, a vibrant high-rise businesses and residential district. It's when you go through the master plan and you go through the Big Beaver corridor study, which is still in many ways still very relevant in 2006, it does speak very much towards mixed use and residential and flexibility. And this is what the applicant, this is why the applicant is seeking rezoning to Big Beaver. Mentioning the Big Beaver Corridor study, there were a number of key concepts that kind of drove that effort in 2006, and I highlighted the one that really is pertinent to this application, and I'll read that. Mixing the uses turns on the lights. Energetic, dynamic of mixed uses with a focus on residential, which is pretty well what it seems like the applicant is seeking. Again, the applicant is not, is indicated in a non-binding application their intent to convert to residential, but we're not looking at that. We're looking at the highest and best use, or all the potential uses that could be approved under the Big Beaver zoning district, and the master plan contemplates this location as being Big Beaver zoning. And I added this because I think it's important that I mentioned the challenging office market, and rezoning to Big Beaver would provide for the conversion to residential or another use, or redevelopment to a more viable use other than focus on office. That would be supported by the master plan. So in terms of findings and recommendations, 5 findings. 1, rezoning to Big Beaver is consistent with the master plan. 2, the rezoning will not cause nor increase any nonconformity. 3, the rezoning will not significantly adversely impact any public services and facilities. 4, the rezoning will not impact public health, safety, or welfare of the citizens of Troy. And finally, 5, providing flexibility in use in a challenging office market is consistent with the goals and policies of the master plan and the Big Beaver Corridor study. So with that, Mr. Chairman, the Planning Department recommends rezoning from O office to Big Beaver. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff regarding this issue? Any comments? Okay, seeing none at this time. Yes. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Barakis.
Yeah, Mr. Sabadan, I have a question. Could you tell us what the worst case scenario would be, for example, if this developer were to get the rezoning to Big Beaver and then not convert the building? Could we think of a worst case scenario that we might need to be concerned about? Could he tear the building down to the ground and put a 20-story
I'm waiting for you to finish.
hotel? I mean,
So in theory, well, in pragmatically as well, let's look at it different. I'll answer your question, but let's look at it a different way. If the office building remains O office, it's going to be an office in a very, very challenging market. So now the owner of the property has a lot of options available. They could leave it as office if rezoned, leave it as office, and they get tenants and away they go, they fill the office building. Office is a conforming use in the BB zoning district, so that's doesn't create any conformities. They could convert to apartments. They could convert to something else that's compliant in the permitted use in the ordinance. Or they could demo the building, then whatever they did would have to come before the Planning Commission for consideration. So if they did, I'm not going to use the word worst case scenario for a hotel because it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I guess it's potential. There's a potential for that. We see something like that. But there's the potential for a lot of exciting things as well. The owner could also get the property rezoned and sell to somebody else. But again, anything that happens on the site that involves redevelopment, demoing and rebuilding is going to have to come before this board. So, and it's going to have to comply with the zoning ordinance. So, for a worst case scenario, that's a pretty good worst case scenario. We're going to see it.
I mean, I was basically trying to assess the risk of the risk of the rezoning, what risk there is to the city to make sure we don't regret the decision.
There's a 4-story building on site. I think there's 360 plus or minus parking spaces. So it's not a huge site, but we could see a more dramatic building there. We talk about friction and high rises when they're close to single family residential. This is not really. it's close to single-family residential zoning, but the use of the single-family residential zoning is church. So so in terms of getting a more intense development, a bigger high-rise, there's a potential for mixed use. There's a potential for more apartments or condos or what have you. So anything that's more intense, assuming it can park, so there's a potential for a parking deck and getting more intensity there, which is really what we want at that particular location, given what's happening in that area. I should have mentioned in the 2006 Big Beaver Corridor study, which again, it's starting to get a little bit gray in terms of its age, but that study included a market study that indicated that the district at the time could support 10,000 residential units on Big Beaver. Now we obviously are not have not got the number of units to get us anywhere close to that, but at the time it did call for more residential because with more residential there's more activity, there's more support for restaurants, there's more people walking, there's more people spending money, there's more activity on the streets, etc. So hopefully I've answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, it did, and I appreciate that. I guess I was most intrigued by the idea of residential, but I understand that we're really not deciding that today, and he's not bound by it. I would like to see that. It seems pretty interesting to put condos in that sort of sleek, modern building, but...
Yeah, and I wanted to be careful because, again, it's a rezoning. We're here to talk about a rezoning,
Yep.
not a conversion. So, but when you do go through the master plan and you do go through the Big Beaver Corridor study, it really does call for more residential. So hopefully and again, we've had a lot of projects with the Jonah Company, and he hasn't lied to me yet. So if I've learned that when Jordan and his dad Arkin say they're going to do something, they do it. And if they're not going to do it, they'll tell you they're not going to do it. And so we take it at face value. But we are considering a rezoning application, not a conversion.
Any other questions? I'll go with Mr. Lambert first now. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Savinant, 2 or 3 people on this commission were around, showing our age, when the Monarch project kind of fell apart back in 2006, 2007, in that period. And I know that one of the disappointments I've had has been there haven't been more of these types of projects along the Big Beaver Corridor. What do you think has prevented those from coming to fruition, and why do you think maybe now is the time that there's interest in it by a developer?
That's a great question, because when we approved the Big Beaver Corridor study in 2006, then we kind of rolled that into the master plan in 2008. We literally carried that document through to 2008, and I thought my naive self thought that we're just going to open the floodgates and we're just going to see all this investment, and these mixed-use buildings were just going to happen right away, and we got the parking lots filled in with one-story buildings, and then we got some great projects like the hospital next door, 3-story, 80,000 square feet. But then we finally, within the last 2 or 3 years, started to see more mixed use. Although, we had the hotel restaurant building that they haven't broken ground yet, but that was a really exciting project. And I'm having pre-application meetings with people, and they're talking about mixed use. So it's finally coming around. I think there's a couple reasons that come to mind. One is, with all due respect to everyone in the room, I think the development community in Michigan tends to be very conservative and not very creative. They do what they do, and when it comes to really cutting edge, kind of riskier projects, the really cool examples of things that are happening. We have to go to Columbus or Chicago or places a little bit further away for the most part. I mean, there are some great projects here, but you get the magazines, the real estate magazines that show awesome projects. They're in California, they're in Florida, they're in Texas. There's not a lot of them in Michigan, but I'm really generalizing. The other, and probably most importantly, is value of property. It's taken a while for property values to climb, and now we're at a point where, if you want to buy property on Big Beaver and you want to invest, you've got to get your numbers, you've got to get your square footage. So that means, you know, you've got to think about parking decks, and you've got to think about mixed use to not only make the numbers work, but also to minimize your, you know, in terms of mixed use, to help minimize your risk. Those are my ideas. I mean, we've got an expert sitting here who I would invite to chime in. He knows the market a lot better than I do.
Okay, Mr. Rahman.
Yes, my question is, by default, Big Beaver zoning allows how many story? I forgot. And then, is there any special permission we need to have a high-rise building? Because I see a bunch of high-rise buildings.
Depending on the building form, there's an unlimited height. So in theory, they could take this building down and they could put a lot higher building there.
But for that, there is no permission. There is no.
You'd see it.
Still would come.
We would see it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Faison.
Just a clarifying question. I know that there was a comment about a potential hotel, or is there potential for a hotel? Would a hotel be a special use?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else before I invite the developer to come up? Seeing none, please come up and state your name.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan Jonah. I'm with AF Jonah Development. We're at 4036 Telegraph Road in Bloomfield Township. I also have Jason Jakir here with me, who runs Tower Construction, who could answer any technical questions about construction-wise. But first, it's good to be back in person. I haven't been at a planning commission or a city council meeting in person in quite a while, and it feels good to see everyone face-to-face. We've made a large investment in the city of Troy. Currently, this is our fourth project, and there's actually another one behind it to come. It's a little bit larger, but this one's up first. Our intent is, and I'm happy to say this, is to do multifamily on this property as much as we can with parking and so forth. We are in the multifamily business. This is going to be we have a number of projects going right now, and we look to stay in Troy. We're like to think the long-time holders of real estate, and generational real estate. It's good real estate is what we look for. I could kind of touch on a little bit of the question from earlier. There's so many factors that go into development, and timing is one. It's dollars, it's construction, it's even thought about what you do. There's so many moving parts on how you get a mixed-use development going, and I always think timing is everything in life. And when timing works out and funds are available and construction prices are right and there's good tenancy out there, it works. And sometimes the stars line up and sometimes they don't. We do our best. And we try to be as creative as possible. We think this is a very creative and unique way to turn a vacant office building that's 88,000 square feet into a more viable use of a building. It's creative thinking that actually moves in cities like this. We like it. We think it's a great reuse of a building. My intent is not to tear down this building, and if it did, we would of course stay in the guidelines of what we can do with the Big Beaver District, which we do have multiple buildings in the Big Beaver District already that we've constructed and still own and manage. But for the most part, we're looking to be creative and bring a new product into the market that may spark something that can grow. You know, there is a lot of office space up and down Big Beaver and also North Troy that one day may need to be repurposed. With COVID out there lingering, and who knows the future of any other diseases, office buildings can take a little bit of a turn. There's ups and downs. And we have to work together as communities, developers, and citizens to make this viable and work. We want to make this a nice development and bring people in there living and make it a unique project that will be showcased in magazines and so forth around the country. Even though I would not put my name on it just because I don't like publicity too much, but it is a unique opportunity to take and reuse a building. I like to think outside the box with these, and I think it's a great reuse of a building. Even frees up some parking that seas of parking are not what you want to see today. You know, you want viable land that can be reused. So just 2 cents on that. And also in 2006, I wasn't old enough. That's just kidding on that one, but I'm happy to answer any questions, concerns on the property or even development in general, so.
So, any questions? Go ahead, Ms. Malala-Holly.
Thank you very much for that explanation. 3 questions for you. The first one, you mentioned that you have done other projects here. Can you name the few?
Oh, yes. I believe it was actually the Monarch, the project that was mentioned earlier over on, it was
Big Beaver and Alpine.
Big Alpine from 2010. Mr. Crenton was on the Planning Commission at the time, I believe. And also another one where we took down an office building right next to the Gorman's Furniture, and we did a small center there. And the most recent project was at Maple and Coolidge, where we took we tore down part of an office building and refaced the center and did 2 outlots at Maple and Coolidge. And we're finishing up leasing right now, but that was one of our more recent projects. I'm actually very proud of that project, and I showcased it to a lot of people. So.
Okay, thank you. Second question, currently the building that you are looking to get rezoned, is it occupied? Are there offices currently, or is it empty, vacant?
Completely vacant. We purchased this building on March 20th of 2020, right when the governor shut the whole state down, and you wouldn't believe how hard it was to record a deed to actually close on this building. Right now it sits completely vacant. Kelly Services was occupying the building for quite a while. They've moved out and they consolidated into their main campus, which is 999 West Beaver, right on the corner of Big Beaver and Crooks, which is also one of our properties.
Sorry about that. I don't know why my alarm gone off. Okay. And the final question, and although we are not here to talk about that, is, as Mr. Savidant rightfully pointed out, we have a golden opportunity here. I truly believe we have a golden opportunity here to envision a project that is going to be creative, mixed use, fun, encourage a lot of young people, single up and coming career personnel to occupy these kind of residences if one were to be built. So do you have some kind of a vision that you can share that will tell us that, okay, this is what we envision for Big Beaver District?
Hang on a minute.
Can I just say, I think would really be helpful, Jordan, you mentioned it really briefly. Could you summarize, so there's a project right now, there's a pending preliminary site plan application. It's by right, we will see it soon. They've got some traffic and parking issues they're working on, but they're close. Could you summarize that project, which is right next door to this?
Of course, so the bigger picture of this whole project is actually encompassing the corner of Big Beaver and Crooks. That was part of the whole purchase that we did back in March of 2020. So we are planning to do retail in the front on Big Beaver. There is a parking structure behind the Kelly Services headquarter building. We take down the small annex building. It's a white building right off of Big Beaver. And also there's a larger multifamily complex that we're looking to do. Construction costs are not going in our favor today. They change every day. It's kind of an odd situation. But that's the global picture, and this building is actually first because first it's sitting vacant, which any developer hates vacant space, I can tell you that much. And the whole idea is to create a whole campus. So there's great opportunities to create walkability, visibility, usability. It's a live, work, play situation that will come to fruition one day. So.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Go ahead, Mr. Roush.
I'd like to also thank you for this planned project. Looking at the amount of office space that's vacant in Troy, it's potentially long overdue. My questions are recognizing again that we're just focusing on the rezoning tonight, but you mentioned the construction costs and this potential campus. In light of what's going on with the construction costs, do you have any feel for the timeline when you would be back here for with a site plan for changing the use to this? And the second part of that is it possible that you might also be coming back with a site plan that would be part of the campus, or these non-contiguous properties?
Yeah, we will be back we own the properties and we will be developing them. I don't have exactly a time frame. I'm hoping sooner than later. We're long-term holders of real estate, so even some inflation of cost on the construction side, we'll offset it with time. Is it in our minds? In our minds, it's never a good and bad time to buy real estate. It's just good and bad real estate. So we will fight through it. It will work out eventually in our minds. I couldn't tell you exactly when. We're sitting on a vacant building right now, so we will make the investment and move forward with this project and go from there. We are working on it. I hopefully it'll be very soon. There's we've been back and forth with comments with Ben and Brent that have given us a hard time about some parking, which I won't go into details, but he's doing his job, of course. We're going to get everything situated and get this project going. The demand for retail right now along Big Beaver is not very strong. It is a office-dependent road for the most part. I am very optimistic that it's going to come back very strong for retail. And I would hedge my bets even to build a new center on Big Beaver right now. It's just little details that we have to figure out and work through, just because it is a main campus for an office building of Kelly Services, which is a huge employer in the city of Troy. It's actually a very large company too, and for them to be here that long, that we have to work around them too, which we're happy to do. They're a tenant of ours now, so we have to just work our magic through the development phases.
So what I gathered from that is you would potentially have more than one site plan. You wouldn't necessarily have one site plan coming back for the entire campus. You might be coming back with just the site plan for the change of use on this building first. Or maybe something else first.
No, there is a bigger site plan for it encompasses the whole campus. Now, this property is in the whole campus, but it's right next to it also. It was part of a whole purchase, but this property was taken out when we first did this. Truly, when we purchased the property, it was not our intent to go to multifamily with this. Times have changed. We have to adapt. We have to learn. We have to take lemons and create lemonade. There was no office deals to be had. We sat on vacant office space, and we're going to make a good investment here. So this is the first one. There is a larger site plan that will encompass. We do take this building into in account with the whole project, and hopefully it's soon. We'll see, and we're going to play out the market and where it goes. But we'll be back. We're sustainable. That we're going to do this development. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
So
thanks for your information. I appreciate it.
no problem.
Mr. Rahman.
What is the floor area for each floor?
Roughly 22,000 square feet.
22,000, right? So each you're going to make like 64 apartment.
Yes.
So that'll be like an average, I don't know, do you have any idea like what would be the size?
So the building, how it sits right now, is not the best ideal for multifamily, but we make it work.
Yeah.
There's a little deeper spaces that we have to live with what we do. We are putting amenities in the building, so to get that aspect of you can see it from the road and make people feel comfortable. I don't know the exact size of these units, but they're a little larger just because of the depth of them and the window lines and how it lines up, but they're good size units. And all of our developments on our multifamily side, we tend to stay away from the smaller micro units. We like to give value, and we feel it's a longer term hold and a better investment. But
So can you repeat the floor area for each floor one more time, please?
it's roughly 22,000 square feet.
22,000. Okay, thanks.
Ms. Parakis, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you're planning on owning the building and leasing out units, or are you selling condos?
No, it'll be a lease.
Okay.
So
Mr. Faison.
Thank you. Just curious if you've done another project like this where you've reconfigured an office building into residential.
So we've done some very large conversions, including one comes to mind is in downtown Birmingham. We took a theater and created office out of it and multifamily. There was a small multifamily conversion in downtown Birmingham, the Palladium building.
Yep.
That was one of our conversions. We have not had the opportunity to have a vacant building like this that sat the opportunity to make this conversion. We have seen it done before and not many times, but we have seen it done before. We're confident we get it done, of course, but.
Oh, and I wasn't asking the question in the context that you couldn't get it done. You had mentioned the shape and the configuration of the building, and that was my observation when I looked at it. It's just, it doesn't look like a residential building. Yeah.
No, it doesn't, but we do have a plan to soften the building up and put balconies on and make it more of a residential feel of a building. We work with what we get. We get creative and we do our best. So
That's helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I think you've answered all of the questions we had. Thank you for telling us about your project.
thank you.
Next item is the public hearing regarding this item, I should say. The next item to tackle is a public hearing. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Seeing none in the audience, do we have anybody remotely that would like to speak on this item from the public?
So we do have 4 attendees.
Okay.
If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand.
I don't. Do we have any people that wish to speak? Your voice is a little soft, so there's no.
I do have one email for you.
Okay, could you read that, please?
Hello, I'm writing in support of the rezoning of the Lindsay Center from an O to a DB zone. This is consistent with the city's master plan and also with what residents asked for in a recent survey. More walkability, briefly amenities, would be your district. With few, if any, single-family residences nearby, the impact of this rezoning should be minimal. Thank you for your time, Sean. That would be one email, and we have no voicemails.
Thank you very much. Seeing and hearing that there are no more public comment, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for comments or resolution. Any thoughts from our group? Do we have a resolution then? Someone would like to read a resolution? Go ahead, Mr. Lambert.
First, I think this is a great project, and the best thing about it, not only to help promote walkability in the Big Beaver zone, is that there are no single-family homes directly impacted by the project. So that takes a lot of concerns out of my mind. So I would move this resolution that the Planning Commission hereby recommends to the City Council that the O to BB rezoning request as per section 16.03 of the City of Troy zoning ordinance located on the east side of Crooks, south of Big Beaver, the address being 2690 Crooks, within section 28 being approximately 4.45 acres in size, be granted for the following reasons. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the master plan. Number 2, the proposed rezoning does not appear to cause or increase any nonconformity. 3, if rezoned, the property will be capable of accommodating service and facility loads caused by the use of the development. 4, the rezoning does not appear to impact public health, safety, or welfare. 5, the rezoning will ensure compatibility with adjacent uses of land. 6, the rezoning would provide market flexibility to an office building in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. 7, the rezoning would permit residential uses by right, which would have the effect of locating new residents within walking distance of the Big Beaver commercial corridor and employment centers. And 8, the rezoning would permit residential uses which would promote walkability and create a more 24-hour environment within the Big Beaver corridor.
Do we have a second?
I support. Oh, you got a bunch of
We got a bunch of, I'm going to go with Mr. Faison today. Roll call, please.
Ms. Minola-Hawley?
Yes.
Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Chagel?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 8. This is a preliminary site plan review, file number SP 2021-0003, proposed the alcove site improvements east side of Livernois, south of Big Beaver, 2600 Livernois, section 27, currently zoned MF multifamily residential zoning district.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, and if anyone would like to talk offline about any projects, I'm more than happy and willing, so thank you.
Very nice. Thank you for offering.
See ya.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian Pritchard. I'm the founder and CEO of Untitled Chapter Group. Our project for today is Alto. I'll introduce our project team from Untitled Chapter, the development manager that we responsible for this project. Wayne Chubb from Housing Life is our architect, and Recon is going to say a few words from our consulting group. Please help me answer the process.
Thanks, Brian. We old slide deck. Brian's not sure if you were going to go through things or if you just wanted
I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I was going to summarize the project, but if you wanted to introduce your team or talk about it, it's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we generally hear from our planning director to give us an overview, and then the developer gives the details. But go ahead, Brent. Now we'll go ahead with summary from our planning director.
So Luke, I'm going to present, and then you can fill in anything I've missed, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
So the applicant is here before us this evening to convert the Hawthorne Suites, which is located south of I-75 and east of Livernois, from an extended stay hotel to a multi-family apartment development of 151 units. There's 151 extended stay rooms now. They're proposing 151 apartments. They're also proposing numerous site improvements, including landscaping, architectural improvements, and the addition of 25 parking spaces. And with the addition of 25 parking spaces, it'll have an overall number of 193, which is 3 more than required by ordinance for apartments. We're all familiar with the site. It's zoned MF multifamily. It's got multifamily zoning to the east. It's got I-75 to the north, Big Beaver zoning to the west across Livernois, and very importantly, single-family residential to the south abutting the property. This conversion needs 2 variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We are not taking any action this evening. We're going to talk about it. We're going to provide feedback to the applicant, but we're not going to take any action. So that's why there was no resolution in the packet. So there's 2 variances needed. I'll summarize both of them really quickly. The multifamily district, when it abuts single-family residential, is capped at 10 units per acre. The site is 6.4 acres, so there's a maximum cap on number of units at 64 units. They're proposing 151 units, which is a density of 23.35 units per acre. This requirement did not apply to hotels at the time that it was approved. Also, as per section 4.08C, the minimum square footage of an efficiency or 1-bedroom unit is 600 square feet, and the range of units in this building, range from 475 square feet to 600 square feet. So they're going to need variances for the size of the units. They did provide a landscape plan. They're short, one street tree. They comply with the actual number of street trees, but I would note that the trees are located along the perimeter of the parking lot. If they were to actually put the trees in the existing parking lot, they'd have to remove some spaces to provide those trees, and it would potentially put them out of compliance with parking. So it's a little bit tricky situation. The Planning Commission does have the authority to permit the placement of that tree outside of the parking lot and in the perimeter. You'll note on the photo here, there's an existing 4-foot masonry wall that runs the length of the property on the south side between the extended stay hotel and the single-family residences, and there are pockets along this border that lack some screening, and we feel that the addition of some more trees would increase the screening and increase that transition between this use and single-family residential. On the screen is a before or after, if you will, on the north side of on the top of the slide is showing what's there today, and below it is a color rendering showing what they propose to do. Here's another one. It's in your packet. So in terms of change, the applicant is really proposing minimal changes to materials and elevations. They are proposing new paint, but in terms of materials, they are proposing to replace vinyl siding on the first floor with more vinyl siding on the first floor. It is an opportunity to make some improvements to these buildings, including materials and architectural changes, and that's one of the reasons we are looking forward to some discussion with the Planning Commission on this issue. So again, we're not proposing for any action at this time. And I'm blocked up here. Bear with me, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Good to go? All right. I didn't want to commit, but then get interrupted. So I'm in the trolley tracks. So this is going to, so process, we're required by ordinance for this process to discuss it tonight, not take action. It goes before Zoning Board of Appeals. So let's assume best case scenario, they're granted variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We would like the applicant to consider these items. They could provide overall site landscaping calculation, resubmit a landscape plan with more plants to screen along the southern property line, add that additional street tree I talked about, seal the landscape plan with a stamp from a registered landscape architect, and consider providing a higher quality material than vinyl, and provide additional architectural improvements to the buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we can hear from the developer on this.
Yes. Sorry, everybody, I jumped the gun a bit earlier.
That's okay.
I a blank screen with my name on it.
That's-
I'm trying to talk.
That's okay. You sound good now.
Yeah, thank you.
Could you-
I'm Brian Pritchard, and I'm the founder and owner of TriCap Residential Group. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Could you repeat we're getting a bit of an echo in here, so if you could repeat your name slowly, that'd be appreciated.
Sure, Brian Pritchard.
Thanks, Brian.
And I'm the owner and founder of TriCap. We are an operator of multifamily communities throughout the Midwest. Today we own and operate about 3,000 apartments in 20 different communities across the region. And this type of project is really what we do. We buy existing, I'll use the word multifamily, the variance here being this is going from a hotel, hopefully to an apartment project, but we buy existing underutilized apartment projects. We make a significant investment in the exteriors and amenities and apartment interiors, and then we are typically long-term holders and operators of the communities as multifamily apartment communities. As a side note, I was born and raised in Troy. I'm a graduate of Troy High, class of '96. I went to University of Michigan, and my family currently resides in Ann Arbor. So I know the community very well. And somebody referenced the Monarch project a bit earlier. I was on actually the development team for that project back in the mid 2000s. So I'm very familiar with the corridor, and we're really excited about the opportunity to present this project for your consideration.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Savidan.
One thing, I should have added a slide regarding this issue, but maybe Julie, you can piggyback onto this if I misstating something. But this extended stay hotel has somewhat of a checkered past. There are a lot of challenges associated with this site, and there's a memo from the Troy Police Department in here. I just want to go over this really briefly. The administration of the Troy Police Department has tried communicating with the owner on several occasions, as recently as 2021, to address the increase in police responses to the hotel. And these are serious responses, serious issues that are going on, including shooting incidents, drug possession, armed individuals residing there, and large parties with a large amount of people in attendance. So it's got a very low price point. It's become a very attractive and dangerous nuisance for the city of Troy. And he provides numbers in terms of for police calls. And if you look at the numbers from 2012 to 2021, you see a ramping up of activities and calls to this location. If you look at 2020, there were 192 police calls to this site. That's, by my math, that's almost every other day, or yet more than every other day, excuse me. And then if you look at 2021, we're at 124, and it's May 25th. We're not even to the mid mark of the year. So this is a problem. In part because of the transiency of the residents who are staying here. It sounds like the word's out with a certain element that this is the place to go for some cheap thrills. And one of the reasons I'm very hopeful that this project moves on in some form is that potentially the population is going to be dramatically less transient, and it's going to have a corresponding decrease in the number of police calls and just make for better neighbors. So my guess is the residential neighbors to the south, on the other side of that wall, when they get news of this, are probably going to do handstands and car wheels.
Very good. A quick question to you. Is the current developer the current owner of that complex and renting out those units?
The person who's on the phone now? No.
Brian? No, okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Savidan, I've got two questions for you. It's Jerry.
Sorry, all the reflective glasses.
The first question is understanding how we're supposed to evaluate this. And the site plan is coming to us in advance of any variance. So do we look at the proposed, say, development, for the sake of a better word, as if it has been configured in a form or size that is compatible with the zoning ordinance? In other words, a variance has been granted or wasn't granted, doesn't really matter. We're looking at it as if it's 600 square foot units and there's only 60 of them. Is that how we're supposed to look at that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think we have to look at it with the assumption that it's going to come back, because if if they get the variance, we'll see it in something very close to its present form. If they don't get the variance, they're going to have to come up with Plan B, which is, potentially combining some rooms,
So they'll still need site plan approval, so to come back?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's going to come before us for site plan approval, yes.
Okay, and then the second question is, the Troy Police Department information is very compelling, obviously, but we're not supposed to be evaluating the use. I mean, we're really not allowed to take that into consideration, or are we?
I don't know what you mean by that.
We're not supposed to be, we can't make a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I would think that the police information only really comes into play with that.
Well, we're not
Right.
taking any action on this. That information, the police department was made aware of this application and submitted this for informational.
So we're just making recommendations as it relates to what we'd like to see on a site plan.
We're having basically an informal discussion without any action. My assumption is the applicants are on the other end of the line here via Zoom, taking copious notes, knowing that should they be successful with the variance application with the ZBA, they're going to come back with 151 units, and we'll be making a determination on the site plan.
Okay. With that in mind, then, what would you recommend in terms of, did you provide any specifics as it related to the trees on the southern boundary?
No, we left that up to them, and we wanted some feedback from the Planning Commission on that matter.
Can I just, Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes.
just jump in? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We're not making any recommendations to ZBA.
We're not
These
making
are-
any
yeah,
recommendations.
right.
We're not
These
taking.
are just discussion points.
Discussion.
For the applicant. So there's no recommendation. It's not like we make Planning Commission makes a recommendation to City Council on something. That's not the kind of recommendation we're talking about. So
I
make sure
understood
we're-
that.
Okay.
Yeah, he was clear. I understood that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Devon.
There's some history behind that provision. It's a provision that you don't see in all municipalities. Basically, there was a time where this provision did not exist, where an item that needed to go before Planning Commission for site plan approval, then went to Zoning Board of Appeals. There wasn't that relationship, and the Planning Commission at the time that we made the amendment to the zoning ordinance to incorporate this felt that they didn't like being blindsided, excuse me, with applications that went before the ZBA that also needed preliminary site plan approval. They thought there'd be value in bringing it before the Planning Commission informally. That's why I used the word informal earlier, because we're not taking any action. We're just talking. So it gives the applicant a chance to hear what the Planning Commission is thinking informally before it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So there's no surprises when it comes back.
Very good. Ms. Barakas.
Yeah, this is really a question for the applicant. I drove by there today and I was pretty impressed in the sense that I feel like it has some great potential to be redeveloped or repurposed. So I was excited that you're taking this on, because I imagine it's going to be a challenge. And I was just wondering whether or not you had considered combining some of those units so that you weren't seeking such drastic variances, because it would really solve your problem on two ends. One is you wouldn't need to ask for the variance for such tiny units if you were to combine them, and also by combining them you would have less units. I don't think you'd get to where you need to be and you'd still need a variance, but had you thought about maybe doing more? I understand it would be more renovation than maybe you were thinking about, but was it something you'd be considering? Would you be willing to consider that type of an investment to really bring something that would actually solve a need in Troy in terms of a different type of housing, multi-family housing, and more affordable housing that could, solve some other issues in terms of housing deficits we have in Troy?
So, Madam Commissioner, this is Luke Bonner with the Bonner Advisory Group. Allow me to answer that question, since it's very specific to the variances we're going to request from the ZBA. And our architect is also on, so if I If I'm wrong in any way, he can virtually kick me and probably take over the conversation. But we did, and we have to look at that, as part of our petition for the variances that we're seeking. There are essentially two scenarios that could be considered in order to accomplish the goal that we're proposing. One is to combine units, or two, it's to also, because we have the density factor, it also could mean that we're demolishing, entire buildings on the site to get to the proper density. So first, if we were to demolish buildings,
It just,
you guys still hear me?
yes, you dropped off there for about 10 seconds.
Okay, sorry about that. So let me, and I've been on this thing all day, and literally it's the first time that it cut out. So there are two options, and what we're considering the variances for is the density and the size of the unit. So on the density factor, you would have to look at essentially demolishing whole buildings on the property. If we demolished whole buildings, then we would still be left over with the size of the units being under the requirement for a multifamily. And then when looking at the possibility of combining units, the unit layouts are not congruous with one another. They don't line up, small unit to small unit. They're very mix and match. And so if we were going to consider that option, what we essentially would be creating is a very functionally obsolete floor plan and design, and even potentially getting into some structural issues as it pertains specifically to sort of HVAC functioning. So the layouts would be very inefficient, if we can make those layouts work at all. So we did look at those, and those are two things that we have to present to the ZBA as well. So we would be left with, either one, still too much density on the property, or B, we would be creating a very functionally obsolete unit that would be very difficult to market.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for Mr. Faison?
Thank you, sorry.
No, it's okay. Knock any time.
Yeah, a question for staff. Do we have other developments with 475 square foot apartments in Troy currently?
We do. There was a conditional rezoning approved by City Council 5 or 6 years ago, roughly, on Livernois, north of Maple, on the east side of Livernois, that features micro units that are some of the units are smaller than 475, I believe.
They go down to 300.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then another question, and it's about the existing properties. Like others, I think I visited this site and looked at the state of the landscaping, the building, the materials and things. Is it in compliance currently with all our codes and ordinances?
Yeah.
It looked very run down, so I just didn't know if that was up to our building standards and ordinances currently.
Yeah, it was compliant at the time it was constructed. Now there's the quick answer is yes. Now if we were faced with a similar application today, that wall that's there, when I first started here, we call that a zoning wall, and basically for most rezonings, the solution for that transition between two incompatible uses was a wall. And you see a lot of them still out there. You see some of them are along Rochester Road still, some of those poured concrete walls that are 50 years old. I would suggest that if that application came before the Planning Commission, so that it's possible that type of a treatment for a landscaping wall could be approved by the Planning Commission today. But there's also landscape standards in there. It gives the Planning Commission the authority to do more, do less. So it's a long-winded way of saying it probably wouldn't look like that today if it went before this board, but it's in compliance.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Rahman.
Is there any other extended staying type hotel in this city right now, other than this one? And how many, if you know?
I'm not the hotel expert. I get the brands mixed up. There's an extended stay hotel on Equity Drive just to the west of Walmart. There's an extended stay hotel that was recently approved by this board on Wilshire Drive, just north of Big Beaver. There's 2 hotels there. I forget which one's the extended stay, which one's not. There's a number of them. I would say there's probably half a dozen.
Really? Okay. And this kind of police report is also common for those extended staying hotels?
No.
So it's kind of like the management is more responsible than the type of hotel.
I can only go with the information that's before us, and we have a memo from Lieutenant Nate Gobler indicating that he's tried communicating with the owners several occasions to improve the behavior, and he hasn't been responsive. So this is very much associated with an irresponsible owner.
No, I mean, I like the idea. I mean, obviously, this is something related to the previous project where we know that people are not traveling, so, there are not too many people to stay in extended staying hotels, so it makes sense. But my question was like, why this specific location is so much problematic, whereas the others are not. But it doesn't have to be explained here. I just wanted to raise that point. Because, if the city needs extended staying hotels, because there are a lot of buildings, right? Office buildings, we have to be careful, like, when you make the decision.
Well, I mean, I would say that, again, I'm not an expert on hotels, but it seems to me that an extended stay hotel affords someone who's going to be in the area for an extended period of time, but not long enough to sign a lease, and they're here for business or, in all likelihood, business, but other reasons. I would suggest that most extended stay customers are not involved in shooting incidents, drug possession.
Yeah, I know. That's
parties.
pretty unique situation, because I don't think, this is something should be even considered in this decision making, right? That can be individually treated the way I see it, and maybe we have to do that. I even didn't know that in Troy City this many things happen, I didn't know about it, but it's good to know. But overall, the idea is good. Like, obviously the people are traveling less, so it's the same kind of situation we had in the previous, proposals. So, thank you.
Mr. Lambert.
Thank you. I was curious about this location. I know for years I'd seen the reports from the Troy Police about some of the activity going on there, and when like probably most of my colleagues, I drove through there the other day and was kind of shocked by the condition of the buildings in there. It looked more like people were living there as an apartment type of a situation rather than in a hotel. But the question for the petitioner is, what would the price point be approximately for apartments at this location once you were to finish it up?
Hi, this is Rob Sanchez. The price point would be in the $900 to about $1,100 range for rents per month.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Mr. Tagle.
Yes, I have a question, or maybe a statement, not so much a question, but we've had a lot of discussion on this commission about materials, and vinyl siding is always been one of the materials we try to avoid. So I'd like you to consider, when you come back to us, that vinyl siding be replaced by something a little bit more durable. I guess I haven't looked at the plans close enough or the elevations close enough, but I see quite a bit of vinyl siding being proposed, even though it's a different color than the white. I think a more durable material would be appropriate.
Mr. Commissioner, this is Luke Bonner with the Bonner Advisory Group. Even though vinyl siding is not our grandparents' vinyl siding anymore, we absolutely will look at high-quality, durable materials as a replacement for vinyl for your recommendation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Paracas.
I do have a question. You mentioned, this is for, I guess, Mr. Savadan or Mr. Carlisle. You mentioned the like a 300 square foot location, like Maple and, or I'm sorry, on 15 somewhere. Are those rented? Are we filling those? So we think that if we have apartments that are 475, they would get rented?
I believe I haven't communicated with the owner in some time, but the last time I talked to him, or it was either him or his attorney I bumped into somewhere, he was indicating that it was looking really good and he was interested in doing more of them.
Interesting. Okay, so it does sort of fill a need, I suppose. And the last thing we would want, though, is for this investment to be made and then it goes vacant again and then they have to start dropping the price. Because I think probably a lot of the trouble with it, with the police and all that, is the price point. The manager gave up on the place. Not putting any money in, not asking for money from the residents, and it just goes downhill from there. So it'd be great to see. I think it has a lot of potential. I mean, I was impressed when I drove by in terms of the potential it had to becoming something nice. So, I think, thank you to the applicant for taking this on, because I imagine it's going to be a challenge, but it should be good.
Anyone else? Okay, again, Mr. Rahman, go ahead.
Any chance of making this like a two-story townhouse type apartment? So that it will be larger in size? It's to the applicant. My question is...
Sure, Mr. Commissioner, this is Luke Bonner with Bonner Advisory Group. It's another good question. Unfortunately, again, based on the layouts of the units and not really being congruous and symmetrical, that doing something like that would just physically be impossible to open them up.
Okay, and then we cannot go sidewise also on the same floor?
Right. It's the same situation, either going up or sideways. They just don't lay out side by side well enough to be able to just conveniently connect them together.
So the number you said is going to be exact number. We're not going to change it unless we demolish it and start from scratch. Number of units?
Correct. And, to the previous comment about the market conditions related to units of this size, the one thing obviously that's very attractive about this property is, they have been extended stay type units. So from a one-to-one conversion standpoint, they lay out really nicely for the floor plan to stay as it is and to be extremely marketable and allow us to be aggressive with rental rates. And really, the future tenant that we are catering to, truly is a professional tenant. And even more so today with how COVID has really changed, I feel like, the way people have lived. These units lay out really nicely to be a study, to be a work area, to be able to live and have your own, virtual co-working space, if you will. So timing being as it may, this actually helps us very nicely to grab a professional market who can't afford high-end luxury and also doesn't want to rent in an older unit that doesn't have fresh amenities or fresh upgrades. So we feel like this property as it is right now really lays out nicely for us to hit a great sweet spot in the market.
So do you think that husband, wife, one kid can live in that space or something like that, or are you just thinking of single or just a married couple?
Most likely single or couples or roommates. Probably in a rare occasion, there could be a married couple with a young child for a temporary standpoint, but we're marketing more likely to singles, couples, or roommate type situations.
I think that would make more sense. Otherwise, then in school and other things are also will come in picture, right? Because that many families, if we bring in, so we have to look into other things. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Lambert had his hand up.
Just another comment for the petitioner, and just to reiterate, I think it's Mr. Carlisle's suggestion that that existing 4-foot masonry wall, some improvements to that, especially some additional landscaping, would really make it a lot more likely for, as Mr. Savidant said, make the neighbors to the south jump for joy about having an apartment in here instead of an extended stay hotel.
Certainly, and if I could comment on that, yeah, we do like that recommendation, and we think we can certainly add to the screening in a very tasteful way to really give the neighbors kind of a double screen scenario. And again, I'm glad that future neighborhood reaction has been brought up a couple of times. We'd spent a full afternoon door knocking in that neighborhood. We wrote a letter addressing the residents and the project that we were proposing. And I think I knocked on 30 doors because I printed 30 letters. Ended up talking probably to about a dozen residents who came to the door. And I would tell you that just the thought of what we were doing, they were jumping for joy. It's a tough situation, and I felt really bad for some of the things that the residents were telling us that they were putting up with. I mean, I think there's a handful of people there that express serious fear with living there, with the type of activity that's going on. So, on one hand, it's great to do, a really awesome real estate project in a great community. And I know from Brian's standpoint, being a Troy, growing up in Troy and a Troy grad, it has like a different meaning to it too, because you're helping people out in the end. We had a really overwhelming feeling from those folks that they were pretty excited about what could happen there.
For the developer or the architect here, I do see that you have some amenities on site that you mentioned, like a swing grill, I believe 2 of those, and then a bench swing. Where exactly are you planning to locate these? And when this proposal gets passed and you have 151 apartments in this area, is this going to be something that is going to be the responsibility of the residents, I take it, to take care of it, which means are we talking about common house association fees kind of a thing, the maintenance part of it for all this?
All right, this is Rob Sanchez. Thanks for the question. This will be truly multifamily, so as part of your rent, the amenities are included as, to your benefit. So what we are looking at is in some of the lawn areas you see between some of the buildings that they're open grass areas, is kind of creating some additional spaces that people can go outside and reside in. So some of these seating areas and areas such as that. We are looking to convert the existing, it's a tennis court, but now basketball court, and utilizing that as a kind of an enclosed dog park for residents. We see definitely young professionals these days, quite a few, definitely have a lot of pets, so we want to accommodate that kind of goal and kind of have a space for them so that they're not traversing, throughout the grounds, so kind of contained it in addition. And then where the pool area is, and that's the beauty of the benefit of having this extended stay, the amenities are somewhat in place, just not in the greatest condition. The pool area will emphasize a lot of components of the pool area with increased seating and improved seating, but there's an adjacent area that we're looking to put kind of an outdoor kitchen, so effectively a built-in barbecue seating area, so that residents have an area to congregate outside of their unit, besides just being confined in the unit. So we're looking really to create some areas that create community within this complex, more so than they have today.
Okay, so is there a particular direction where these are going to be located? South side?
I apologize. There are 2 grass lawn areas, and I don't have the building numbers, but they're effectively on the southern portion of the site, between 2 or 3 of the buildings along the southern component of the site.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, see that. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Well, my comment is you've mentioned numerous times that you want to attract young professionals, and I strongly agree with Mr. Tagle as far as the outside materials. You should really upgrade to a more professional looking building, not just the vinyl siding. So that would be my main comment. And again, reflecting on what Mr. Lambert said about that south wall, looks pretty pathetic. If we could do something to make that some kind of visually attractive with plantings, that would be important to me. So other than that, I think we've given you enough guidance, have we? Have we done that for you or not?
Absolutely.
Great.
Great guidance, and we will take every recommendation that Brent and Ben have made, as well as your comments, and we will incorporate all of them into the project and bring it back as a new site plan for you to review.
And I know the applicant has had some conversations with Paul Evans, the ZBA liaison, and I encourage you to reach out to Paul. I know you've got his contact information, and your next step is to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals for those variances.
Okay, well, thank you for presenting your project. Next item is master plan update. Is it going to be
Clickers up there.
Ben Carlisle, or is it Brent?
Yes. First off, it's great to be back and seeing everybody in person. I apologize for being late. I had double booked myself, and so I was actually in another meeting in the conference room, so I apologize for that. Very quick update on the master plan. I anticipate we'll be doing this, if not monthly, at least every couple months, have updates with the Planning Commission with regards to the status of the master plan, as well as your involvement in the project. It's not fitting. There, thank you. So based on your heavy input and thoughts into the survey, we have amended the draft survey you saw, and it's going live in 2 days. With that, we've also have a flyer that's being part of it that will be going out, and I'll talk about that in a second. They'll be going out to advertise and drum up response for the survey. The survey is going to be open till June 18th. At that point, we will close it and start doing some analysis on it, with the idea that we may have to go out and send out some additional surveys to get some populations that were underrepresented as part of the initial response. So the hard date is June 18th, but we have some flexibility with extending it to reach some additional populations if we need to. The plan for distribution at this point is there is an advertisement going in the Troy Times. I believe the advertisement will actually be in the 27th edition of the Troy Times. It'll be a flyer just looking like that. That's got both a website destination as well as a UR code, so you can just hold your phone up to it and it goes directly to the survey. We're going to put a flyer in public locations around the city, both private businesses as well as public locations. We're going to have a kiosk at the community center with hard copies of the plan, so anyone that doesn't have access to a computer can go and get a hard copy of the plan. We'll also we would mail out hard copies upon request, so if anyone contacts the city or the department, we will mail out hard copies to them. There will be numerous social media blasts with it. In addition, the city has a very robust email database. And so there's going to be an e-blast going out to 55 homeowners associations, churches. There are 30 churches that they're on the email distribution, and a Gov delivery system with over 10,000 email addresses that will go out as well. And again, we can target individual distribution based on desired populations if we feel that we're not meeting those targets. So I'll pause right here and ask, who did we miss, and how do we reach them? Is there any group on there that you think that wouldn't be covered by those lists, and how do we reach them? We don't need an answer tonight per se, but just that's something that you percolate in the next couple of days. And again, we have till June 16th for the survey to close.
So, Mr. Carlisle?
Yes.
Maybe I didn't see it, but I thought in previous communication it talked about maybe the Troy School District or schools being an area where distribution would take place. And I didn't think I saw that in those notes.
That's a good catch. We will certainly target them and we'll reach out to the school district for communications on that.
Okay.
Mr. Carlisle, one quick question.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Chamber of Commerce.
chamber.
Was Walsh included with the school?
Well, we can include them. Walsh College, yes.
Mr. Carlisle, I think in view of the last year or two discussing the neighborhood nodes, it will be part of this survey. It'd be a great idea to specifically, maybe you mentioned this, send a copy to each of the HOAs organizations to participate.
We have, I believe there's 55 different HOAs that the city has communication with. So we'll be directly sending emails to those HOAs to distribute to their residents as well.
Good. Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, the other one you might look at is using the, I think it's called the Global Troy Advisory Committee, to try to get into those groups that normally don't participate extensively in decision-making and city government.
Yeah.
Oh, Ms. Barakis, yeah.
I know you mentioned public places, but I just wanted to mention a few to make sure we're on the same page. Things like grocery stores, restaurants, salons, fitness clubs, places that people frequent daily, so it's sort of in their face all the time and they can't miss it. And I do have a question. Is it time for, can I ask a question, or are you still looking for feedback?
I have one last slide I would like to get to, and then
yep.
open up for
Go for it.
questions. So, yeah, thank you. Just a timeline on where we're going and headed. So again, May 27th through June 18th, survey is going to be open. The month of June, it's really starting now. In the month of June, we'll be updating the city website with regards to master plan, email, voicemail, so people can communicate. We're putting together basically a master plan 101, which basically is an informational piece that allows just people to understand what is a master plan, how does it inform the city, what's the process for it, how does it relate to the zoning ordinance, just so everyone has an understanding going into the process about what a master plan is. We would like to come back on June 22nd with some very preliminary survey results. That's only, less than a week after we close the survey, but it should be enough to kind of give us some preliminary data. It won't be complete, it won't be final, but it just leaves some preliminary ideas that we get from it. Starting in July, we're going to do our targeted focus groups. We had a list of those that were in the scope of work for the project. We'll start those in July. You can just leave it here. It's fine. That's fine. Just how it is. Yeah. Thanks. In July and August, we would like to host a master plan kickoff. We held off on that because we want to do it in person. It's really important to do that in person. And so now that we're kind of in person again, we want to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and City Council. It's kind of it's almost a celebration, but it's also a working meeting where we talk about common issues. We will go into much deeper dive with what the survey results came with. We'll have focused ideas in terms of what sort of things we want to target. And then moving into August, September, we want to do those walking tours of the nodes where we actually go out, meet with residents at the different nodes, walk them, get their opinions, get their advice. And that leads us into the end of summer and into the fall. So that's kind of the next marching order for the next couple of months.
Ms. Barakis?
So now my question, how are we, I believe that the surveys are anonymous, even though we're collecting some data on the people, but how are we assuring that you're only getting one response per person? We
have our software, and I'm not the expert at this, someone in my office does it, but our software double checks for multiples. You can't stuff ballot boxes. There's automatically a detection as part of our software system for the survey that can detect if there's multiple responses are coming from the same URL address. Don't ask me how it works. It's a question we get asked all the time, and it's never failed. That we've never had a problem with it. Okay. And the technology, we don't use SurveyMonkey. We use a more higher advanced survey system that allows us to capture if there's a suspected case of ballot stuffing or too many coming from one address.
Okay. So I imagine though, if you take your phone and you scan a QR code and you fill it out, and then you go home and you do it on your home computer, you could possibly do two, but I'm not really worried about fraud. I think we're looking for ideas, but you know, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that one. If you do
Yeah.
it off of your laptop versus your phone,
Right.
I can find out for you and get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Malala.
Mr. Carlisle, have you considered Nextdoor? People seem to be pretty active on the Nextdoor app, and it is connected between neighborhoods as well. I know Troy Marketing does put together some things periodically on there. Have you considered?
Yeah, Nextdoor would fall in our social media blast, so we'll use the city Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor. So yes, it would fall into that category.
Mr. Roush.
I had a question. How are the target focus groups going to work?
In terms of identifying them, in terms of running them.
The whole shebang. I'm not sure
So
how the process is going to work.
we have a list of different focus groups. DDA is one, school-age children is another one. We work with the various components. So DDA is easy, right? So we go out and we recruit certain DDA members, and we usually have a group of 5 or so, and we'll meet with them in person and kind of go over thoughts and ideas and questions. For those populations of the schools or school-age children, we work directly with the schools, and we did it for the last master plan, where we say identify 10, 12 students, and we actually meet with them in person and kind of go through a routine in terms of asking questions and getting their feedback.
So is that something that you and your staff does? Or?
Yes. And then we compile all those and bring them back to this group with kind of the results, and that kind of informs our planning process and our planning decisions.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Baracus again.
Is there a target number of responses that you're looking for?
Yes. If we get, I think our goal would be to get around 1,500 is typically the response that we would like to get for a community this size. If we get over that, I'd be, obviously we'd like to get more over that, but 1,500 to 2,000 would be our target goal.
1,500 will be what percent of the community?
What's 80,000
80,000 now we have, right?
Typically for a volunteer survey like this, you don't get much more than, if you get lucky, if you get 5%. If you don't do a specific targeted outreach to as more scientifically specific. And so you typically, if anything if you get up to 5%, you're really, really doing well.
Is it based on the household, or is just everybody can give you some feedback? Everybody in the house, like 6 members, 6 feedbacks.
That's in our opinion, that the more the better. Any age. I mean, if you're 4-year-old, let's do it. I don't think we don't have any age.
We put a lot of thought into the design of the ad and the flyer. I mean, if you go up, and we used our mark. Go to the very first slide.
I can't move with this.
Oh, okay. So the logo at the top, we've actually branded it with that logo, Plan Troy 2040. We put a lot of thought into the design of this with the UR code or the QR code or whatever you call it. The thought is you can just, we're all used to going to restaurants now and using that with our menus. So we wanted to, again, keep the survey fairly short so it's not cumbersome, make it really convenient. So someone who gets home, opens up the Troy Times, boom, half-page ad. We're not talking about a little one. It's a big ad. It's well designed. It's attractive. Gets the word out. Also, we hear a lot of people when there's a rezoning application, 5 years, 10 years after the original master plan was developed, no one told me. Well, we want people to participate and be knowledgeable about this, and we didn't just, Ben and I didn't do this. We use people who are really good at this type of thing to help us. So, not that you're not good at this, but I'm certainly not.
Mr. Lambert.
Is this your official announcement that this will be #PlanTroy2040?
Leave it to you, Mr. Lambert, to ask that. That's
above our pay grade.
That's really good. He's making note.
Yeah, good.
It is.
Ms. Malala Holly.
I loved the design. I must tell you that it is very colorful, appealing, and the eye gets drawn to the colorful images that you have there. I think I really liked it. So good job on that.
Thank you.
I just want to compliment you as well on I thought it was really creative to come up with that QR code. That's awesome. And I think that I'm going to state on the record that I think you're going to have more than 1,500 people respond. I think that you're going to get a much larger response than that. And I know I'm going to be promoting it, telling everyone I know to participate, and I really hope we get a good response. I'd love to see that. So congratulations. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. Our graphic person in our office did, so I can't take credit personally. I thought they did a really nice job. It really pops.
They did.
They did.
Okay. Anything else from our commission?
Well, we heard loud and clear that from not only this board, but city council, the residents, engagement's important, and we're trying. And this is some great input and some great ideas that we got tonight that we'll incorporate. So I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I feel pretty good about this.
Yeah, I think you're doing a super job with it. It looks, I like the logo with the planning and kind of like a blueprint paper. Looks like a plan to me. I like every bit of it. It has a lot of those subtle hints that should say, hey, I should participate in this. So it's well done.
Yeah, and that actually was the plan trail was actually done in house by Stephanie. I forgot her last name.
Fleischer
from the city manager's office. So all credit to her. It's really nice.
We'll have to definitely thank her for that. Anything else on this item before we jump to the next one? Okay, let's go to public comment for items that are on the agenda. None in the audience here in city chambers, but do we have any? Jackie? Oh, there she is.
We have no submitted public comment for email or voicemails.
Great, thank you for that. We'll go on to the next item is Planning Commission comment. I'll just start with this side and go all the way around. Ms. Malala Holly.
I don't have any comments, thanks.
Go ahead. Just go ahead. I won't have to call your names.
No comment.
I just want to say I'm glad to be back in person, and it's really wonderful to see everybody.
No comment.
Just congratulate to Ms. Zarnicki for being a champion pickleball player. I understand she took maybe second place in the state of Michigan for playing pickleball. So. The only other thing is I assume Mr. Savidan at the end will talk about what happened at City Council last night as far as the ZOTA amendment. So.
Okay.
I'm just glad to be back and see people again instead of a square on a TV screen.
Yeah.
Nothing from me.
Nothing.
I actually have something, a couple weeks, last year sometime, I mentioned our office was defending the Zoning Board of Appeals decision on the cluster zoning what's the word? Deck. They wanted to build decks,
Oh, yeah.
Parkview. I don't know, Mr. Roman. So Mr. Mossing from my office argued that last week. He got an opinion today affirming the ZBA. So that's very, very, very good news for the city. It's not necessarily good news for the people who live in that particular cluster development, but it's good news because it upholds our cluster ordinance. So.
Good to hear. Mr. Savidan.
Yeah, I presented, there was 3 public hearings at City Council last night. 2 text amendments, you'll remember. One was related to the one-family residential cluster option, where we increased the maximum square footage of units qualifying for the housing diversity bonus from 1,500 square feet to 1,900 square feet. The other was that we place additional restrictions on neighborhood nodes, limiting the height to 2 stories, one abutting single family, and also strengthening some setback requirements and greenbelt requirements. That was also approved. And there was also a rezoning application last night for rezoning of a lot from P vehicular parking to R1E one family residential. That was also approved. So 3 for 3.
Very good. Mr. Carlisle.
Again, apologize for being late, but it's great to see everybody and look forward to seeing everyone moving forward.
I guess we're all set. I have no comments, so I guess we're adjourned.
Good, David.
Don't run.